This is the Hot Wheels Twin Mill Gen E. According to the Hot Wheels Wiki, this particular design, unlike the other twin mills that have the huge engines on it, twin engines, this one has electric engines inside that aren't visible from the outside. I guess we just have to take their word for that. There are some similarities to the other twin mills. And, I've done a series of these. I've been converting all of those twin mills to Redlines to look like the original one. And I received several requests to do this one. As you can see, this one has a putrid orange glass, plastic base, plastic insert with the seats that's black. I won't be changing that. That white base I will be painting silver to look metal, like on the original Redlines. And fortunately, that body is metal. At least something there is metal. One of the nice things about doing the Redline conversions is a lot of times you can just use that axle from the wheels that came with it. And that's what ends up happening on this one. Now, if you've watched the earlier Redline conversions I've done of the twin mill, I've been painting them all with the red metal cast paint because I wanted them to sit side by side so you could see the differences in the designs, even though they're all sisters from the same family. So this one, even though that color is close to where it ends up, it will be a little bit different. It won't have that anodized look. And again, that orange glass had to go. So I took this reusable clay. And what you basically do is you throw that in boiling water, it softens up, and then you can press anything you want into it. And then when you're done with it, you can throw it in boiling water again and use it again. It's really cool stuff. I thought I'd give this a try for this glass. As you can see, it casted pretty well. And because I'm taking this to the Vacuform machine, I need to make sure that plastic will pull down into the windshield area. So I drilled a couple holes into what would be the part of it that's under the roof of the car. And yes, I stupidly drilled that into the top of the desk. As you're going to see there, I did leave some marks on my cutting board there. But it worked. Yeah, there's the two dots. I know, I was pretty stupid. So then it was time just to take it to the Vacuform. And this thing's coming in really handy. And obviously, the more I use it, the more I'll get comfortable with it and figure out ways to do this better. Again, I'm using presentation covered plastic, which is super thin. I mean, there isn't much to that plastic. And you just put it in the frame, as you can see there. It clamps down. And then that top piece, the head piece, does heat up. It's a very simple machine to use. I mean, there isn't much technology behind this. Basically, you heat the plastic drops down and gets sucked down into the pattern or whatever you're trying to do. It again couldn't be any easier. And the prices on these things have really plummeted. This is apparently for dental use. There are the two switches. The left one is basically vacuum. I don't know why it says model. And the right one is heat, which, yeah, is heat. Heats up the plastic. As you can see there, the plastic is getting soft. And you want it to be really pliable so it'll suck down into whatever you're doing. Once you have it to the heat that it looks like it's interesting because it will sag a little as it heats up, and then it rises back up. And there you see it being plopped down onto it. You basically switch the heat off, you switch the vacuum on, press it down around there by hand just to make sure everything gets in the nooks and crannies. And it's really simple. I'm looking forward to doing other glass pieces, particularly where they're just windshields with not a lot of body to them. I think this clay will come in handy for that. There you see the body after I've stripped it. And it was pretty clean casting. I didn't have a lot of filing on it, but to get it ready, I polished this up and then I put the metal cast paint right over it. So I basically took 3000 grit sandpaper, wet sanded the heck out of this thing, thought I had it where I wanted it, polished it up, and looking at the polished results, there were still some rough areas. There's some tough areas to get to, like there on the sides. And there were some other areas that I just hadn't got to. So I did end up resanding it again, as you can see here. And it's one of those things that it's almost somewhat therapeutic to do this polishing. I do polish it with flits and a Dremel tool is how I'm doing that. There you see where I ended up after polishing it. And I went with the red metal cast paint and then with the Minwax clear gloss poly over it. This is all rattle canned. And then the base was white plastic. Obviously, I did not want that to remain white plastic because it wasn't traditional. So I went with this aluminum plate lacquer on the left, and then I went over it with the wet look clear lacquer. Both of those are testers paints. The one on the left was the Model Master paint. And then it was time to make the wheels. I printed these bearings. It's, I think, my third design of the bearings. I keep making the recess bigger so when I crimp it, that piece can go inside the bearing without me having to drill it. I did have to drill these bearings out ever so slightly to get the larger axle through, because when I design them basically to be used with pins. And it's so easy to drill them a little bit larger because you have the guide hole already in it. And then, those are just Bright Vision wheels. They pop right onto those bearings, and really you end up with a really easy, inexpensive Redline conversion, which, I'm all about inexpensive. There's the glass. There's a better look at it. Looking back on it now, I probably should have dipped this in gauzy just to make it even more shiny. I chose not to because it seems fine. Kept the interior black. I did not do any details on that because it's not like the Redlines had details like that. So just making sure everything fits right. And you got to love the shine from the Minwax Clear. It turns out really well. You can't use that on white because it will yellow on you. But on something like this, it turns out really well. And again, this is all rattle canned. An airbrush didn't get next to this. Those are 256 screws that I use on this. Fortunately, this has much larger posts than the old Redlines did. So there you see it. This is, again, the Gen E twin mill. There is also a hard-nosed twin mill that I still have to do. There's where we started. And again, it's not a bad-looking car. There's things on it that the orange glass, dear Lord, I don't know what they're thinking. So even changing that out makes it look a lot better. But the vacuum-formed windshield, really does work well. And as you'll see as it goes around here, you can see the steering wheel. Even though I didn't paint anything in the interior, there you can see the steering wheel, and it doesn't have that putrid color to it. The Redlines, there's so many cars that the Redlines just really look good on. And I haven't been disappointed yet on the twin mill conversions. So there's some Glamour Shots coming up. I hope you've enjoyed this video. This was a blast to do. Hey, kind of artsy on the photo, huh? Yeah, I did a couple artsy-fartsy photos, and then it's back to kind of my usual stock Glamour Shots. I don't know. I happen to open the blinds. the light was hitting it just right. Eureka! There are some pictures with the rest of the twin mill family coming up too. So the one left that I have to do that I'm aware of is the hard nose twin mill. I do have that casting already. So it's not a particularly attractive twin mill. It's somewhat reminiscent of the tuned version there on the far right. Thank you to my Patreon supporters for standing by me through all these builds. I do appreciate it. If you're not already a subscriber to the channel, please consider subscribing and check out some of the other videos I have links to here. Everybody stay safe and healthy out there, and I'll catch you in the next one.